Penguins got a weekend split in their final back-to-back of the season against the Stars and the Blackhawks, and Pat and I are going to recap both games, plus get you all set for the week ahead right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Camping. Follow him on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet, and you can follow these shows Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen / watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And yes, people, I am back. I'm in my wonderful office. I got back from my vacation on Friday. It was everything that I needed and more. It was just really nice to get away for a few days, still do the show a little bit at times, watch the Penguins on Thursday. But tropics are like a really, how do I want to call it? Like a safe space for me, Matt. I love the beach, man. I love hearing the ocean. I love going in the ocean. I love sitting on the beach and reading. So it was everything I needed for a few days, but I am glad to be back doing the show here this week. And then, of course, next week as we really round out the season here. 4 games left, my friend. This thing just absolutely flew by. But we'll start today's episode with the recap of the game against the Dallas Stars. One of the Penguins' best efforts of the season, if I do say so myself, a 5-3 win by the Penguins. And we got dueling hat tricks by Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Dadonov, of all people. Just a very fun dueling hat trick game. I love the way the Penguins played in this one. I thought Tristan Jarry was really good in net. Obviously, Sidney Crosby, Pat, 12-game point streak. I know it came to an end on Sunday. We'll get to that a little bit later. But during that point streak, 11 goals, 20 points in those 12 games. He was sensational on Saturday. 4-point effort. I think he's going to hit 90 points this year, by the way. I know there's only 4 games left, but Pat, I say he does it. I think with the way he is playing, I think he is going to hit 90 points by the end of the season. He was the best player on the ice in that game to me. He started things off with a wonderful finish off of Evgeny Malkin pass. Rutger McGroarty has a gorgeous pass of his own for Sidney Crosby to finish off his second goal, and then he gets an awesome empty netter later on in the game. We're going to touch on the kids in a second because the kids were, I think, really good in both these games, and they've provided a lot of youth, a lot of really strong energy since coming up, and they look ready for the show, in my opinion. We'll touch on that in a second, but I wanted to start with Sidney Crosby because what he's doing right now is not getting enough praise, enough attention throughout the league. The fact that he is having this kind of season at age 37 is ridiculous. And yeah, people, congratulations to Alex Ovechkin. He just broke Wayne Gretzky's goal record. Awesome stuff. But we also need to be talking about the type of season that Sidney Crosby is having, my friend. He was, again, the best player on the ice on Saturday. He was everywhere in all 3 zones. And he has been playing some electric hockey since the Four Nations faceoff break. It has been a pleasure to watch.
The focus is rightfully on Alex Ovechkin breaking Wayne Gretzky's record on Sunday, which if you have seen or will see the national show, you'll see me make a little cameo talking about everything that this means from the perspective of a Penguins fan. But obviously that is worthy of all the attention that it's getting because that was a once thought to be unbreakable record. Alex Ovechkin breaks it, which is so cool. But you're right. There has not been, understandably, a lot of focus on the way Crosby is playing because it's almost to the point where, because he's not chasing a sexy record like the goals record, it's almost just an expectation at this point. There's no like, oh my God, look how good Crosby's playing. It's like, yeah, Crosby's playing really well. That's what we expect Sidney Crosby to do. But when you add it all up and talk about what's been going on with Sidney Crosby and the Penguins and the Four Nations face-off, it's really remarkable because right before the Four Nations face-off, he misses 2 games with an injury. And everyone's looking at him going into the Four Nations face-off and thinking, well, it's not that big of a deal. Canada has all the kids. They've got McDavid, they've got Marner, they've got an embarrassment of riches like they always do. So a little bit of a banged up captain Crosby's not going to be that big of a deal. And then Crosby goes out and shows that he's still one of the best players on the planet in that tournament. Granted, doesn't win MVP, doesn't lead in points or anything, but makes his presence known in every single game. And then you expected, at least we did, when he comes back from that tournament, that he's probably going to miss a game or two to recover, to catch up. And he says, no, screw that. I'm playing in every game. And he reasserts himself as one of the best players on the planet. And he just continues to chug along at age 37 as one of the best players in the world. And we saw that on Saturday against Dallas. Now, I do want to make this point about Saturday's game. If you're a Dallas Stars fan right now, there's got to be a lot of flashing red lights, because this is a very good team. I said it on our Friday episode. I think they're one of the best teams in the West, at least when you look at their roster on paper and who they might get back for a playoff run to make them even better. It's a team to be reckoned with in the West. However, we have talked about this on the show. You have to give full marks to the Penguins, because even though Sunday, and we'll talk about it later in the show, officially eliminates them from playoff contention this year, yeah, they battle and they work hard, and they're rarely ever going to give you an easy 2 points. But the Penguins were the better team all game long on Saturday against a very good Dallas team. And this is, even though Dallas was on a winning streak, you could see that the wheels were starting to shake a little bit. But, when you're a team that's pretty well into the playoffs, they know they're going to make it. You expect to see some nights off. But to get dominated by a team like the Penguins the way that they did, and I know the score says differently, but if you watch that game in its entirety, the Penguins were mostly the better team. They just weren't getting a ton of puck luck. And because they're not a very good team, they weren't really able to capitalize on dominating. So if you're Colorado right now and you're looking at Dallas and thinking this is going to be our first round opponent, you got to be licking your chops, because this team, unless they figure it out in the next 2 weeks and really get back on track, they might be able to beat Dallas. I don't want to say handily, but it might not be as tight as people think.
See, I understand what you're saying, though. The Stars should hopefully get Heiskanen back for that series. They are still very much missing him right now. But I will say this about the Stars. The right side of their defense is disgustingly bad. Like, you have Ilya Lyubushkin and Matt Dumba and Cody Ceci on your right side. You need Miro Heiskanen back, because you cannot call yourself a serious Stanley Cup contender and have a right side of that going into the playoffs. And with Colorado right now, they're red hot. And rumor has it, Pat, Gabe Landeskog might give this a shot in game one. And that is going to be an electric scene. If Colorado can somehow get the home ice for the first round, that's going to be absolutely crazy, because, you look at the standings right now, the top three in the Central, it's really close. Obviously, you have Winnipeg up top with 108 points. Dallas is at 105. Colorado's at 98. So it's more unlikely right now. But still, if they can get Landeskog back, they'd have a person that looks like a documentary at all of his practices, I think, just filming whatever it is that he's making. But if they can get him back, that's going to be such a big addition for them. I know he hasn't played in a while, but getting your captain back for game one of the playoffs, like, that just sends out such a big energy to the room. But, we'll discuss the playoffs when the playoffs come around here in a couple of weeks. But completely agree with you. I thought the Penguins were by far the better team in this game. And the underlying numbers also support that, Pat. I mean, they led in shot attempts. They also led in scoring chances, 11 high danger chances for, 8 high danger chances against. They were living in the offensive zone basically all game against Stars. You also had Brian Russ get his 28th goal of the season. That matches a career high. Hopefully he is able to notch his first 30-goal season here down the stretch. He also, Pat, has a new career high in points, 59. So congratulations to Brian Russ. Setting a career high in points, needs one more goal to set a career high in goals with 29. I do think he's going to hit 30 in these last 4 games of the season. We also saw Blake Lizotte get the game winner. Hilarious play by former Pittsburgh Penguin Cody Ceci. I even tweeted, imagine playing Cody Ceci in our year in Lord 2025. I had to put the joke out there, people. I did. Just a really funny play at the blue line. He had no idea where he was going. Blake Lizotte's like, okay, thank you very much. I'm going to capitalize that on the 2-on-1. And I will also shout out Casey DeSmith for playing really well for the Stars. He made a lot of really good, timely saves for them. And going off that, especially on the kids, Billy Koivunen could have had a goal or two in this game, Pat. You and I were texting about this during the game. I felt he was all over the front of the net. He got a couple of glorious chances from 5 to 10 feet out that Casey DeSmith saved. I also thought Rucker McGroarty, again, had a really good game in that one. And the biggest thing with me with McGroarty and Koivunen is their game sense is off the charts. They are ready for this, in my opinion. They will play out these last 4 games. They will go down to Wilkes-Barre to help them for a deep playoff run potentially. And I think that's the last you will see of them in the AHL. I think so far, very small sample, people, don't get me wrong. So far, they look like they are ready for the National Hockey League. Rucker McGroarty looks like a completely different player than the player that we saw at the beginning of the season. His skating is miles better. He's going to the front of the net a lot more, just like he was doing in Wilkes-Barre. His playmaking has been really good as well. His decision-making has been really good. And I can say the same thing for Billy Koivunen. They're always in the right position in all 3 zones. They're making the right plays, getting quality chances, setting up quality chances. As I said, Koivunen was the victim of some brutal luck on Saturday against the Stars, but I can't say enough about the way these kids are playing right now. They have injected so much energy into this team. Before that little bit of a downer against the Blackhawks, they had brutally outplayed 3 bona fide playoff teams in a row. They were the better team against Ottawa, which they won. They were the better team against the Blues, in my opinion. I know they lost in overtime, but I still felt they were the better team in that game. And then they were the better team against the Stars. It's just really nice seeing them play like this with the kids up. I thought they were sensational in that game on Saturday and on Sunday. We'll get into that in the second segment, though.
You hit on the one thing that is the most important about those two throughout the last week or so is their hockey sense is unbelievable. They're very much in the right place at the right time. The biggest thing I noticed along with hockey sense, and I think you can probably fold it into that category, is that they play within their own abilities. They're not trying to do too much. They're not trying to take over games. They're not trying to become the next big superstar. They're fitting in with who they're playing with, and they're working really well with who they're playing with. I joked with you when Crosby got his second goal against Dallas off that pass from McGroarty. I think when they celebrated the goal and Sid hugged him, he went, "Nice pass, Jake." I mean, wait, you're not Jake, you're Rutger. Yeah, good pass, kid. Because that's chemistry. That was just chemistry. It was a great pass. Let's, not underplay that, but that's just a good chemistry play. It shows that you know where this guy's going to go, you know where he's going to be, and you know how to set him up. And that doesn't come easy. So I agree with you. I think these guys are going to stick the rest of the way. These last 4 games, they're going to go help Wilkes-Barre. And then when we get to October, we're going to see the final. We're going to see the opening night roster, and their names are going to be on it. So we'll talk a little bit more about them in the second segment. But through the first week of them being on the team together, a lot of really positive signs.
100%. And they'll get a rematch against the Blackhawks on Tuesday. But before we discuss that rematch and preview it later on this week, we got to talk about the first matchup of the season against the Blackhawks and how the Penguins really didn't have any energy for that game. It was a pretty, let's just say, lackluster effort by the Penguins. But again, it was the final back-to-back of the season. They just really did not have anything for that game. We'll be discussing more about that in the second segment. But before we get to that, we have to tell you all about our first sponsor, and that is Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posting on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where you need the right hire. Like yesterday, the pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can spend your hiring process with a 75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. And the Penguins fall 3-1 to the Chicago Blackhawks on Sunday in a pretty lousy effort. I felt like the first few periods, very low event for both sides until Erik Karlsson made a really stupid pinch late in the period. That's just one of those quote-unquote hope plays that I want the Penguins defensemen to get out of their game. And you saw it really bit Karlsson there. There is no need to pinch on that play. He needs to pull back, do the 2-on-2 with Chris Letang, and play it that way. You cannot pinch in that situation. That was a 20 to 80 puck, 30, 70 puck, whatever you want to call it. There was absolutely no reason to pinch there. And once that goal was scored, you could kind of tell the bench was a bit deflated after that with the way they were playing. Also, we do have to mention, Pat, the Penguins were officially eliminated from playoff contention on Sunday. We knew this was the case several weeks ago. It was made official on Sunday. 3 straight seasons the Penguins have missed the playoffs. I predicted them to miss the playoffs before the season. You, on the other hand, I'm going to make fun of because you predicted them to make the playoffs this year. A little bit. I'm going to make fun of you a little bit for it. But you know what? It's okay, Pat. We still love you on this show. But 3 straight seasons. And I know for me, this was expected. It still stings, though, just because, yeah, I'm spoiled. I grew up with this team making the playoffs a lot of years during my childhood. So it stings that this is now 3 straight seasons where we're not going to get playoff hockey in this wonderful city. So we'll see if that changes next year, but it was made official on Sunday. As for the overall game, as I said, teasing into this segment, Penguins really had nothing for this one. You could kind of tell they started the game okay. They got a couple of good chances on Spencer Knight. By the way, Spencer Knight was sensational in this one. I thought he was going to record a shutout with the way the Penguins were playing. And if he were to record that shutout, if the Blackhawks did, it would have been their first shutout, Pat, since December of 2023 against the Anaheim Ducks. And no, I'm not joking. I looked that up before the start of the show. The Blackhawks have been that bad throughout these last few years, and they haven't had a shutout all season. Again, not since December of 2023. But they get the scoring started 1-0 late in the second period. Really poor pinch from Erik Karlsson. You can't do that there. And then they make it 2-0 in the third period. Rickard Rakell matches his career high a bit later with his 34th goal. Congratulations to him. One more goal. He will set a new career high in goals with 35. I say he does it with the way that he has played this year. But even outside of Karlsson, I don't think any of the defensemen played well in this game. I thought especially, Pat, Connor Timmins was awful. I have said a lot of good things about Connor Timmins this year, but he was brutal in this one. His foot speed was out to lunch, losing a lot of these battles in the corners, just was not playing a sound game at all. But by far, I think his worst game as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I thought Sid was a little bit lethargic, but you know what? I'm not going to blame Sid. He just had 20 points in 12 games, so that's okay. It just, sometimes you have these type of efforts on the second half of back-to-backs. The team isn't that good. Yeah, I know the Blackhawks, this was only their second win since March 7th. Yes, people, that is true. They had lost 5 in a row in 12 of their last 13 games. But Penguins really didn't have much for this one, my friend.
No, they didn't. And I got a lot to respond to, as well as I got something that I got to add about Chicago in this. But let's start where it began. Yeah, I was wrong about playoffs this year, but I will say I hedged a little bit to where I said, like, I can see them sneaking in as a second wild card or missing again by a couple of points. So at the end of the day, I really was wrong, because right now, as we record this on Monday morning, they're 11 points out of the second wild card. I thought that maybe it would be similar to the last 2 years where they sniff around, maybe they get lucky and sneak in, maybe they miss by a couple points. I didn't think it was going to be this much of a miss, so I'll wear that one. As for everything else, I mean, the Karlsson pinch, here's the thing, and this isn't a defense of him, it was a bad pinch. Letang also has to wear it because he played that horribly.
Good call. Yes.
You got to take away the pass on that. He didn't, and it led to the goal. So both of them have to wear that. I can, at the very least, if Letang plays it correctly and they still score, I can take some blame off of Karlsson because it's on the power play. You're trying to be aggressive. You're trying to score. And then that happens, which is a risk on the power play. But then you compare, or then you pair it with how Letang played it. And that's just, it's unacceptable from both, because if you're Letang and you see that your partner on the power play is about to pinch, you have to understand you got to come back at that point. And he just didn't. So horrible play by both of them. Connor Timmins, yeah, he's built up a lot of goodwill since becoming a Penguin. He's played pretty well. That is a game where if I'm Connor Timmins, burn that tape, forget it happened, and get back to work, because that was just absolutely brutal. But yeah, I mean, I said it to you yesterday. I had to remind myself that this was two not good teams playing each other. We're so used to the Penguins being a good team that when you have games like this, you're kind of confounded. Like, what is going on here today? But then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Penguins aren't good this year. So this is two bad teams playing one another. This is what happens when two bad teams play one another. And at the end of the day, this team has done really well relatively with back-to-backs this year. They've been, for some reason, really good on the second half of back-to-backs. So that was a little bit of a letdown, but we're at the end of the year. They have officially been eliminated from the playoffs. So you were waiting for a letdown and you finally got it. But before I throw it back to you for whatever we want to do to end this segment, a quick note about Chicago. I'm not going to go on another tanking rant because I've done that. I have felt the fire of our fans and of the internet for my anti-tanking stance. But I want people to look at Chicago as a cautionary tale. They are in the second year of Connor Bedard, and he has no help whatsoever. The kid's going to be very good. He is going to be one of the best players of this new generation. It's there for him, but he's got no one with him. And you look at how long Chicago's been doing this. This is at least year 4 of them trying to figure this out, because you don't have Taves anymore. You don't have Kane anymore. You don't have Duncan Keith anymore. All those guys who made that mini dynasty of the 2010s are gone. And now they're on an island. They don't really have anybody except for Connor Bedard. And that's a risky run when you tear it all down. I like the position the Penguins are in. We just talked about McGroarty and Koivunen. You still have a handful of other players who I think are going to make a difference. You still got all these draft picks coming. So the Blackhawks are a cautionary tale of what happens when you tear it all down, because they might be better next year, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff team next year. They'll be even better in 2 years. Still don't know if they'll be a playoff team. And at that point, you're going into year 5 of Connor Bedard. So I get it. But the one thing I will say, and I brought it up on the Friday show, is to bring this back to yesterday's game. It takes a while usually in rebuilds for teams to find their goalie. They have it in Spencer Knight. He's 23 years old. He was damn good yesterday. He has been really good since they acquired him from Florida. So that's a very good sign for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, he was very good. He's been really good since coming over in the Seth Jones trade, and he's got to be there for the long haul. He was making some dynamite saves for the Blackhawks. And I do agree with you about the Hawks. They need some more big dogs. That's the biggest thing, my friend. I think they need some more high-end talent in that lineup. No disrespect to Ilya Mikheyev, who had 2 goals yesterday. No disrespect to Ryan Donato, who is having a career year, 29 goals. He is shooting almost 20% this year, 17% to be exact, but he's having a really good year. But they still need some more horses in that top 6. I think they're probably going to get one of the big 2 in this draft, if I had to guess, Pat, and one of Misa or Schaefer, and one of those 2 players should make the team. Well, Pat, looks like Penny wants to go outside right now, so I think this is as good of a time as any to segue this to the final segment of the episode, though I do want to say one thing. I felt Rucker McGroarty was really good on Sunday. I felt he had that nasty pass to Brian Russ in the second period that went just over the net, and then McGroarty got a good chance of his own a little bit later from 10 to 15 feet out. He was great once again, and I will say the same about Ville Koivunen as well. It's been nice seeing Koivunen also play with Evgeny Malkin. Real quick, also with the numbers, with McGroarty, Russ, and Crosby together, 5 games, almost a 65% shot attempts per 60 rate, 3 goals for, 2 goals against, 64% of the scoring chances, 77% of the high danger chances when that line is on the ice. Keep feeding them for the rest of the season, and then we'll see what next season looks like as well. But that'll do it for this segment. Coming up to end the show, Pat and I are going to look at the week ahead for the Penguins, the rematch against the Blackhawks on Tuesday, and then the final matchup against the New Jersey Devils coming up this Friday. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about our final sponsor, and that is Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp, who probably needs to let out his dog in the next 5 to 10 minutes here before we end today's episode. But we get the rematch, Pat, first on Tuesday against the Blackhawks. Penguins will look for a response in that one, and I expect them to show at least a decent response here. I'm not going to sit here and say they're guaranteed to win this game because the Penguins just lost to the Blackhawks, but I do think you're going to see, at the very least, a much better effort than what we saw on Sunday. They were pretty gassed after that win against Dallas. They didn't really have much for the first couple periods. I thought if you want to argue it was a push against the Blackhawks in the first 2 periods, I can give you that. Third period, though, they were just brutally outclassed by Chicago. So at the very least, I expect a response. And then they'll have a few days off before Friday against the New Jersey Devils, which is also, Newark is a house of horrors for them. It's been like that, not even just these last few years, Pat. It's been like that for a lot of the Crosby era, if I'm being honest. So you always know you're going to get a big fight there against the Devils. This is a Devils team that, they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win that round against Carolina. I know people are going to be hesitant to pick the Hurricanes, and rightfully so, just because their style doesn't really work that much in the playoffs. But I think Carolina is healthier right now. Jack Hughes is not available. I would take Carolina to win that series in probably 6 to 7 games, if I had to say. But still, the Devils' team speed, even without Jack Hughes, Dougie Hamilton's a bit banged up. The Devils' team speed gives the Penguins problems every time these two teams play. So that's going to be a tough game. And then, Pat, after that, they'll have 2 more games left. One against the Boston Bruins, who I got to say, man, elite tanking move here down the stretch. They legit might get one of the big 4 in this draft. Heck, the Pack, they might have an outside shot at getting one of the big 2 in this draft. You have to respect the Bruins for that elite tanking job that we are seeing right now. After they traded Brad Marchand, the players are like, we're kind of done with this season. And I can't really blame them too much. Pasternak is still there. McAvoy is still very much prevalent in that locker room, of course. But it's I understand why they're playing the way they are. We knew they weren't good, but they just lost their captain. So I understand. And then to end the season, Pat, next week, they will have the Washington Capitals. Should be a fun end to the season. I mean, I don't know how many players the Capitals are going to be resting in that game, just because they're going to win the Metro and they're probably going to get the number 1 seed in the East. But those are the final 4 games, my friend, until we go enter full off-season mode here.
It's an interesting end of the season. You got 1 road game left. And of course, like you said, it's the house of horrors in Newark, where the Penguins have not had a ton of success in the Crosby era.
And that Bruins game, by the way, is this Sunday in Pittsburgh.
And then you close the season out with 2 home games. And I look at tomorrow's game against the Blackhawks, and we'll dive deeper into it tomorrow on our preview episode. But I think that this is a game where, if I'm Mike Sullivan, I am going to lean on the kids a lot more in this game. You're out of the playoffs. These kids have shown they belong. So really thrust them even more into prominent roles and see what they can do, and really give them a chance to respond, to see how they do in that kind of situation. When, you come off a loss, they played well. I think they've earned even more ice time and looked like they deserve even more of a prominent role down the stretch now that you're out of the playoffs. New Jersey, man, I mean, I hate to say it for a division rival, but I just want to know what this team is like at full capacity going into the playoffs, because the talent's there. The system is there. This looks like a team that's really ready to take the next step, and they've done everything right. They just really can't stay healthy, and you hate to see that, because you want to see elite talent thrive. You want to see them play well on the biggest stage, and New Jersey just can't stay healthy for whatever reason. So sucks for them. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to see some fight. out of this team down the stretch. I know that it's 4 games left. It's been a miserable season. You're missing the playoffs for the 3rd straight year, but you've got 2 divisional rivals. You've got a team that just beat you and another tanking team. Real quick note on Boston, though. What might have been, and this is not a 1-to-1 direct comparison, obviously, but I look back at the 2010-2011 season, and obviously things went really well for this team. They win 2 Stanley Cups, the whole 9 yards. But I look back at the 2010-2011 season when Crosby gets the concussion, Malkin rips up his knee. I still cannot forgive Ray Shero for still going for it. If I was in that position, kind of like the Bruins are now, it's a little bit different with guys aging out and guys not being as good, but they got to give Don Sweeney a little bit of credit. He saw the writing on the wall. This team wasn't going to be a Stanley Cup contender. So he sells a few guys off. He gets some stuff back in return. They're going to get a really good draft pick. They still have a couple of young guys in Providence who could come up and make a difference. Are they going to be great? Probably not. But rather than just hold on and try it, he was like, you know what? Pull the shoot. Like, we'll trade Marchand. We'll trade a couple other guys. We'll get a better draft pick. We can give these Providence guys a look next season and see what happens. Maybe Marchand comes back in the offseason. But to bring it back to the Penguins, when both those guys were hurt, just say screw it. Don't go out and get James Neal. Just let it ride, miss the playoffs, get a better draft pick, and try to restart when those guys are healthy again. So I got to give that, like, I think his overall body of work, Don Sweeney's done not a very good job, but
he stinks.
But in this moment, I will give him credit that they looked at it and went, we ain't winning a Stanley Cup, not this year. So let's just pull the shoot and try to get a better draft pick.
I mean, sure, but he also didn't have to sign Zadorov and Lindholm to those massive contracts last year. Just
right.
That was ridiculous. And then he blamed Jim Montgomery for that awful roster that he gave him. He stinks, man. He's not a good GM. I understand the point that you're making. You know, he realized that they weren't going to do it this year, decided to sell off at the deadline, but I'm sorry, man. I still am really not going to give him too much credit. He stinks. And I know, again, as I said, elite tanking job by the Bruins. Marchand's gone. You know, McAvoy is still hurt. But as I said, he's still very much around in that locker room, Pat. But it really, it's been crazy to see how far they have fallen these last few weeks. Like, they are just getting, you know, loss after loss after loss. It's been nuts to see. So, again, Tuesday, Blackhawks. Friday, the Devils. Sunday, we get the Bruins here in Pittsburgh. And then next Thursday, people, 10 more days until the Pittsburgh Penguins 2024-2025 season comes to an end. But I think that will do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back with another show for you all on Tuesday to get you all set for this rematch against the Blackhawks and discuss a couple other things relating to the Penguins as well. So for Patrick Damp, I am Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back on Tuesday.